Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters, and today's episode is going to be a little different. As you've seen from previous episodes, I've brought you some amazing guests that talked about their awakening and what it means to live from an awakened heart. Today, I'm going to share about me, so you can get an idea about who I am. I'll give you a little bit about my background and what my intention is behind this podcast and why now. First of all, our hearts. There's something so incredibly amazing about our hearts, and it's called coherence. This is something a lot of us don't really know, understand, or have heard about, but it's becoming more and more apparent. There's a lot of scientific studies around it, but it's so fascinating that the heart is the most powerful source of electromagnetic energy in the human body. It produces the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field of any of the body's organs. The heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. Now, we've all heard about being in a state of flow. Now, most of us have actually experienced that incredible feeling of just being in the flow, just being in the moment. And it might happen during a yoga or meditation class or cooking with loved ones, or you might be immersed in a project and the time just flies. Or, you've got that tune on and you're dancing and you're just lost in the rhythm and you are in that zone. And that zone, that flow state, is where our hearts, our minds, and our bodies are at one. And we feel a deep connection with ourselves and others. We just feel so connected. And when we have this connection, not only within ourselves, but to our environment, we feel connected to Mother Earth. Nature is a great place to go out and reconnect with ourselves. That is when we are actually in coherence. And being in coherence and being in the flow and being in the present moment, flexible and open to life challenges and nurturing a beauty in relationships is what divine feminine energy, feminine essence is all about. I'm a huge proponent of that. A lot of us have in this Western world of going, doing, having everything. We've gotten lost in this masculine way of being. Even though we have to have masculine energy within us, it's about balancing it and returning to something that's natural, free, open, and authentically unbridled. I love that word unbridled. I always think of a wild stallion or a horse running around the field because we are free, we are wild, we are in touch with our true nature. It's got an expansive and open quality to it. When a woman is in her feminine essence, I have seen it, I have felt it. Life is magnified through her heart. It's magnified through her soul. Femininity in its purest form is vulnerability, generosity, creativity, radiance, playfulness, and freedom. Take a moment, sit with that, feel that. How gorgeous, right? And it's a natural state of being. It's in each and every one of us. So now I'm going to take you back to about 50 years ago. Yes, 1970. I was born in Michigan, and I was born to, my birth mother was 16 years old when she had me. And of course, she had to give me up because she was just way too young and just not in the right environment to raise a child. And so I was actually given up to foster parents who really loved me and wanted to keep me. But at that time, when foster parents were taking care of children, they weren't allowed to adopt them. And my foster mother was really attached to me. So she had to give me up at 5 months old. So By the time I was 5 months old, I had been given up twice. And I actually remember the day I was given up, 5 months old. People are like, how can you remember that? You're a baby, but it was imprinted in me. I remember two women crying, and I was very confused about what was happening. Now, my adopted parents, who are my parents, they are so wonderful. They gave me everything that I could ever want. They loved me. They let me know that I was wanted. Never for a moment did I think that I was not loved. I was one of three girls they adopted. So my older sister was a year and a half older than me. We got adopted out of the same agency. And she's blonde hair, green-eyed, Irish type girl. And then my younger sister, we adopted her just after the fall of Saigon. So she came over from Vietnam. She's Vietnamese Cambodian. So she was like the darker skinned girl, and then I was like the Cocoa Puff, like of mixed race baby. And God bless their hearts, this was a time in the 1970s where racial tensions in like the Detroit area were really high, and they put, I think it was a hope sign on the door where there were two hands, a white hand and a black hand together. And it was hope. And I guess they got a lot of flack from some of the neighbors, but they didn't care. They just taught us to love anybody. It doesn't matter their skin color, race, religion, that we deserve to be loved no matter what. And I'm so grateful for that. So one of the things about my parents, they were both teachers, and they had this beautiful adoption prayer. My mom was an artist. So when we came along, she stopped teaching in order to be around and raise us, but she was always having her hand in something. She would decorate the church, or she would teach catechism, but she had this beautiful adoption prayer over, I remember, by our phone, and it goes like this: not flesh of my flesh, not bone of my bone, but still miraculously my own. Never forget for a moment you grew, not under my heart, but in it. God love you, Mom and Dad. So lucky and so blessed. My sister, my older sister, on the other hand, the moment I came home, it was a battleground. Like, I swear, sister wars all the time. We created like hell for my parents growing up, but now she's like the sweetest person in the world. So I guess, sibling rivalry to the fullest extent. So with that, I think there was always like this need to protect myself, and having been given up twice, even though I was very loved and I never felt not wanted, I think there was just this little bit of air of disconnection, a little bit of feeling like I didn't belong, and maybe being a little needy. I remember my mom always saying, like, Nancy, don't be a victim and don't be a martyr. So I think I had a little bit of this victim mentality that just kind of like permeated or just carried over with me into adulthood until I woke up, and more about that in a little bit. So I got married in my 20s and to a wonderful man, and I just had a great relationship with him, but I felt myself growing more and more, and I didn't want to stay in Michigan, and I had always wanted to move to California. I had gone out there on my spring break, absolutely loved California, but I stayed 10 years longer in Michigan, those freaking cold winters. If you've ever been to Michigan and you've experienced a cold winter, I remember driving around and skidding on black ice and just hydroplaning, or going out to my car and scraping the windshield or pouring hot water into the locks because, I was iced out. I couldn't go anywhere, or driving to work in 50 below zero weather and my heater not even working until I got to work. So yeah, Michigan stayed with me a little too long. So when I got to be, I think it was like I was 28, my husband and I separated, and I moved to LA, and literally my world, my life opened up there, like friendships. I had work. I worked in the entertainment industry. I have 20 years plus of friendship with some amazing group of women, and, we still keep touch to the day, and we're still very, very close. And, opportunities came. Relationships came and went, and there was a point where I bought a place, and then I finally put it up for lease, and I moved to the beach. So I lived at the beach the last 6 years, absolutely loved it. It was, I would get up and I'd walk around the boats, or I'd walk to the ocean. But like I said, there was always this pervading sense of loneliness, and my last relationship really set me over the tilting point where I had a series of relationships where, they would come on really hard and strong and I would fall into it. And it's just as quickly as they were in, they were out. They'd emotionally bail and leaving my heart reeling. And the last one that happened to, I'm like, this is so painful. I can't go through this again. I've got to wake up. I got to figure this out. So I took a time out and I really processed a lot of emotions. I processed a lot of pain. There was time where I would just cry I would cry for a month straight. Like I'd be fine and then I'd feel it come on and I'd go and ugly cry in my closet, in my apartment. And soon enough, after processing the emotions, it became less and less. I learned to let all that pent up emotion, all that pent up pain release itself. So it didn't have a hold on me any longer. So in this time, instead of putting my worth outside of myself into the hands of someone else, which I used to do. I used to give up my whole life for somebody else, thinking if I could just be sweeter, if I could just be better, if I could be better than the last person and show them that they were loved, that I would get their love in return. Well, what I was actually doing was sacrificing my own self for their own happiness. So in essence, I was betraying myself. I was betraying myself and I wasn't giving myself what I needed. I was walking on eggshells. So during this time, I gave myself everything. I wasn't reliant on someone else for my own happiness. I had to stop and dive deep into my own self. I had also gotten into real estate. I used to do real estate because I used to do commercial background work a lot. It was great. Spent many, many days on set, and quality of life was great because I would work, and go on vacation. As soon as I come home, I'd work. And that kind of freedom and that time freedom and security, knowing that I had work, was awesome. And then I became a real estate agent and I would sell houses on the side. So that would be my gravy. I had the commercials to pay all the bills, and then I had real estate. That was the gravy. But there was a period where I started becoming so miserable and so stressed out because, and I had to look back and count back, like, let's see, how long have I been this miserable? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 years since I started doing real estate full time. So I really had to check myself and pull back and really take a moment and create something different. So the method of insanity, it's doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. So it took a little while to take responsibility for myself. I was burnt out. I was stressed out. My heart was aching, needing to feel validated, needing to feel worthy, looking to the outside conditions for my own happiness. And I was blaming everyone and everything else for not having what I thought I wanted. Damn you, God, right? And I had a wake-up call recently, actually, because it's an ongoing process in Hawaii. I realized I had this victim mentality. And so I had to really wake up and wake up to myself and reconnect with the deeper part that is timeless, ageless, nurturing, receptive, and open. My beating heart, where I found myself in my own divine feminine essence. When I finally took the time to get in touch with my true, authentic self, my life clicked into place. You see, I unlocked the power that comes with reconnecting with that beautiful feminine essence that is the key to living life full of ease and grace. I slowed down. I was more in the flow, and I took a deep dive into my own sensuality. Not only did I stop looking elsewhere for my own happiness in someone else, but I have created a life that I love on every level. My friendships have deepened, collaborations have happened, and I travel far and wide as often as possible. I became a magnet to opportunities and events I couldn't even have imagined. During this time, I also took a big leap of faith and decided to leave my friends, my home, and the city I have lived in and loved for the past 21 years. I was scared, but staying where I was, doing the same thing over and over again, like my life was on a repeat of Groundhog Day. Remember that movie? That was even scarier to me. I was getting up on the same side of the bed. I'd get up and make my coffee, walking around the marina, even though it was beautiful, but I'd be complaining about real estate, the dating scene, and the Sahara Desert that was my romantic life. How are things going to even change if I keep doing the same thing over, right? nothing was changing and the calling wasn't going away. So I finally decided to go for it. I packed my bag, said goodbye, and went in the direction my heart was whispering to me for years, Oregon. I had heard, oh, Oregon, it rains a lot. Yes, well, that's why it's green. Oregon people do not like Californians. Don't move there. So I talked myself out of it for 3 years, but it still wasn't going away. And that's when you start to listen, because the whispers, before they become screams, you have to follow the nudge, or you're going to get the proverbial 3x4 in the head. So Oregon, the land of the trees and parks and yes, rain, but you know what? I love that as well. Everything about life here resonates as a yes, and I am excited about all that is happening as a result of making such a bold move. You see, I have learned to listen to the whispers before they become shouts. I know how to tap into that inner wisdom that leads me in the right direction. Do I have meltdowns? Do I have doubts? Do I have fears? You bet I do. But I move forward in spite of them, and now I have the tools to not stay there too long. It's all part of the juicy experience we call being human, and that's what I want to share with you. Not only am I going to share the profound changes I've done to change my own life, but how others have done astounding things and are living life on their own terms with passion and purpose. Epically aligned souls who may have had some hard times in the past, but have overcome them to not only prosper, but thrive. Some of my amazing gifts you have heard have shown you how to empower yourself through your breath, intuition, and listening to your heart, being fit at any age, up-leveling how we relate to each other as women, and owning our divine, sensual, feminine power. You will also hear solo podcasts from me where I share bits of my story, insights, how I overcame certain obstacles, and the lessons I learned to offer you tools and resources as a result. It may not be about the same thing, but it's something you can relate to and let you see you are not alone and help you make that shift into joy and fulfillment. I will be bringing you so much more, and I'm excited about who else will be sharing here on this podcast and how that might impact your own life. Remember, what you see in me is in you. I believe we're on the cusp of feminine goddess energy blossoming once more in society and government, and that will cause civilization to evolve into a more humane, prosperous, and peaceful direction. When we can slow down, become present, aligning our hearts with our soul, there is nothing that can stop us. When you inspire one person, you have already changed the world. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I am going to just give this everything I've got to bring you some amazing guests. I can't wait to see what's next and to see more people becoming aligned and attuned to the wisdom of their hearts and living from that space. Because when we do, we not only change ourselves, but like I said, the world around us changes. And what a beautiful, wonderful world that will be. That is my hope. And with that, thank you again. I'm sending you so much love. I have so much gratitude for you, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at the awakenheartpodcast.com.